They thought I was alone at my father's memorial until I gave the command. Arlington, Virginia, December 10th, 2023. Incense drifts while the organ holds a low breath. Winter light shards through stained glass and rests on the flag-draped coffin. I keep my back straight and grief contained. My father taught me that not every enemy stands across the field. Some sit close, smiling. Vicky has the aisle half out of the scene, fully in control. I breathe in 4, out 6, and refuse to supply the tremor she is fishing for. A weight touches my palm under the rail. James's hand is gone before my fingers close. The screen wakes. Don't react. She's recording you. I do not turn. I map the angle phone low by her purse lens canted past a hymn book, the tilt that gives away intent. I place the phone against my skirt and type the word we rehearsed and hoped never to use. Raven. 4 letters and a quiet machine inside the service begins to move. A chair ticks against wood, then another. 8 of my father's former SEALs attending as private citizens and ushers rise from different rows as if pulled by one thread. Dark suits, calm faces, a courtesy that asks without asking. They split through the nave spaced like punctuation. No one raises a voice. It looks like part of the liturgy. I keep my eyes on the altar. Candlelight wavers over the portrait glass and catches the purple heart on my father's chest holding a bead of flame. Precision reads as kindness when done correctly. Vicky is last. She tries to lower the screen, then offers her practiced innocence. The woman beside her, short hair, steady eyes, leans in. I cannot hear the words. I don't need to. Vicky's fingers blanch, then unfasten. The device leaves her hand. Our eyes meet. The old arithmetic whirs recast, retreat, rearm. I give her nothing. Discipline is currency. I will not spend it on spectacle. The organist turns a page. Normal returns as if it never left. The team dissolves back into the congregation, absorptive as shadow. The air settles. James does not look at me. He never needs to. Appear alone. Never be alone. That is how you cross a hostile room without announcing what you've brought. I let a thread of grief rise and hover, then set it back. The service is about my father, not my sister's hunger for theater. He loved honor because it requires maintenance. Today, that means keeping a funeral from becoming an edit bay. Behind me, fabric whispers Vicky, searching for a new angle. The pastor begins his homily, service, legacy work that outlives a uniform. I let the words pass. On the way here, I told myself I wouldn't need the word. On the way here, I packed it anyway. Doctrine, plan for the weather your enemy orders. A signal glints from the side aisle, collection complete. I exhale cedar and winter. Let them believe I sat alone in the front pew. Let them believe a woman in dress blues carries only what they can see. Vicky's attention clings to my neck like static. I do not turn. The hymn resolves on a high, bright thread. I slide the phone back to James without looking, lace my fingers, and hold the line my father taught me to hold. This wasn't rivalry. This was war disguised in mourning clothes. Battles aren't always fought with bullets. Sometimes they begin with paper. We turn the living room into a war room on December 12th, 2023. The rug rolled, the coffee table shoved under the bay window, a lamp tilted like a field light. The house still held a trace of incense from the memorial. The seals moved like water 2 days ago. Today, I meant to move like ink. James came in with a banker's box. He set it down, flipped the lid, and lifted a buff folder as if handing me a sidearm. Names, he said, and threads. Financial ones. Paper hissed as the folder slid to me. On top, transfers to a shell company dressed in patriotic vowels. Beneath, a retainer agreement, hotel receipts, the smudge of someone who thinks paper won't speak. I steadied my breath, 4 in, 6 out, and opened. The first page, a boutique practice in Arlington retained for strategic communications. The next, consultancy invoices to a man I once pulled from a joint unit for ignoring protocol. David Mercer. His signature leaned forward like a runner stealing a step. I circled dates, drew arrows, felt the hinge of the week click. Before I wrote anything, I unlocked the slim steel case on the shelf. Inside lay photographs from my father's study and the temporary frame the archivist sent. The Purple Heart sat beneath tempered glass, its ribbon a disciplined violet. I had found it in a crumpled paper bag. The Army Heritage and Education Center now had custody forms ready. The medal would live in a vault, not a rumor. The phone chirped. Caroline Brooks on speaker. Her tone a line drawn in air. I briefed fast: hotel booth cash across wood, the memorial ambush, and the device sweep that strangled it. She listened, then delivered the sentence I had already considered at 3 in the morning. If they prove you unstable, your NSC nomination collapses. The truth did not bruise. Then we don't give them volatility, I said. We give them procedure. A breath across the line, half laugh, half warning. Document everything. Preserve everything. And do not react in public. James poured coffee, slid a legal pad toward me, and tapped once. Sent her out. I printed the first name in block letters, then the second, then the machine that launders both. I uncapped a red pen and drew the first line in the binder arrow, blunt and unforgiving: Rachel Hale, David Mercer, Arlington firm. Rooms change temperature when intention hardens. We built from there: plastic sleeves swallowing receipts, tabs for weeks, an index for exhibits, a custody log for every device we had touched since the memorial. James read the chain the way you read a checklist over rotor noise, deliberate, exact, while I hunted for frayed edges and burned them shut with notes. Outside daylight slid off the neighbor's siding. The house settled. The furnace ticked. Our war room found cadence. I kept the metal within sight, a small compass that refused to point at anger. The seals were courteous because they were prepared. I would offer the same courtesy to the truth. By the time we closed the binder, the table looked like a map. I ran my thumb along the spine the way I once ran it along a rifle stock on commissioning day. I am not a rumor. I am a record. Paper is slower than panic, and that is why it wins. Some fights begin with a pen's thin scratch and end with light. Always. The phone buzzed face down. I let it hum once, twice. Then the voicemail played through the speaker, bright, guileless, a child's voice threaded through the quiet we had built to keep harm small. Mom says you'll sell Grandpa's medals. Weapons don't always gleam. Sometimes they're made of paper and crayons. December 15th found me on Vicky's porch, casserole in hand, breath a pale cloud against the glass of the storm door. The house smelled of cinnamon and dish soap when the babysitter waved me in. She apologized. Vicky had stepped out for errands, but Emily was in the kitchen and wanted to show me something. The warmth of the room felt almost stubborn, defying the winter pressing at the windows. Emily tugged my sleeve, her small fingers urgent. Come see what I made. On the dining table, a neat row of crowns lay in construction paper hues, red, blue, gold. She lifted one made of purple silver stars glued in a crooked constellation. She placed it on her head, chin lifted with a regal seriousness that almost broke me. Regal, I said softly, the word shaping itself before I could stop it. She giggled, spinning the paper, trembling with each turn. Then she leaned over the table, coloring a lopsided oval with a purple crayon. This is Grandpa's heart medal, right? The one for being brave and hurt at the same time? I felt my pulse settle heavy in my chest. I crouched beside her, letting my voice stay level. Yes, sweetheart. It's called a Purple Heart. Your grandpa earned it in Vietnam. She shaded harder, then asked, casual as a child should be. Mom says you're going to sell all of Grandpa's medals. Is that true? The question landed with the weight of artillery disguised in innocence. I steadied my breath. No, I said, careful and calm. Medals aren't things I sell, they're things I protect. Your grandpa gave more to his country than most people will ever understand. Those medals belong to his story. Her brow furrowed. Then why would Mom say that? She looked at me, not accusing, just curious. Children don't disguise, they deliver. Sometimes adults speak from hurt, I told her gently. Sometimes they're mistaken. I did not add what else adults sometimes do. The babysitter called from the kitchen. Vicky would be home in 10 minutes. Emily nodded, returned to coloring, and glued a ribbon to her paper medal. The gesture, innocent as it was, pressed into me like a promise. When I left casserole untouched, I sat in the car with my hand still on the wheel. I called the Army Heritage and Education Center, voice clipped and steady. I arranged custody papers for every medal, every citation, so they would be cataloged, photographed, and sealed in a climate-controlled vault. Facts endure longer than rumors. If Vicky wanted to spread that lie, the record would make her the liar, not me. At home, I opened the binder and drew another red line: narrative contamination, via child. It was a tactic as sharp as any blade I'd seen in combat, using innocence as a courier for poison. My jaw tightened, but my hand stayed steady as I logged it. Later, when I checked my phone, a message blinked: a custody date set, archivists ready. Relief washed through me, quiet, disciplined, not joy, but assurance. The medals would be protected. That night, when the room was silent and the binder lay open beside me, Emily's voice returned, small and insistent, echoing above the scratch of my pen. "Can you show me the real one someday?" The sharpest knives are words served with coffee. Uncle's living room held roast and pine, holiday softness that makes people lower their guard. December 20th, 2023. Coats crowded the rack. Mugs warmed coasters. We gathered to finalize memorial donations, a phrase polished so bright it hid the trap beneath. I took a chair by the window and watched winter light draft pale squares on the carpet. James stayed near the bookcase, hands folded, ballast in a room built on nerves. Father's lesson came with me: stay calm when provoked. Hold the line, the room keeps trying to bend. I breathed 4 in 6 out and nodded to cousins I hadn't seen in years. Vicky arrived late, scarf looped, just so, grief arranged like jewelry. She touched elbows, accepted a cup, and let the room orbit. When talk turned to which charity should receive which portion, she achieved what she always achieves: center stage, without asking. "Before we sign," she said lightly, "can we talk about stewardship? Catherine's great at ordering soldiers, but useless in real life." A small laugh like glass striking a sink. Somewhere a spoon paused mid-stir. The blow landed as if padded, but bruised all the same. I didn't look at James. I didn't look at anyone. I adjusted my posture by a fraction and let silence stand up for me. Words are sharpest when they ring against emptiness. I refused to give hers that ring. My father would have approved: don't duel a heckler, outlast one. The lights clicked faintly as the string warmed. Someone asked about tax receipts. We resumed niceties, but a hairline crack had already traced itself across the family's porcelain. James's gaze found mine, one beat a signal. "I'm here," I answered with the smallest tilt of my chin. "Appear alone. Do not be alone." It kept the floor steady. Vicky watched for the flinch and found none. Something darker moved behind her smile. She corralled the talk back to paperwork, but the room kept remembering what she had offered: a script for my diminishment. I held still, palms touching a soldier's prayer for poise. Holiday chatter rose and fell. An uncle recalled my father repairing a neighbor's fence in the rain. A cousin added the old maple and summer shade. I let their kindness thread through me, a thin tourniquet against the bleed of insult. The coffee was burned. The cookies were sweet. The air was crowded with the polite labor of pretending nothing had happened. Under that veneer, I inventoried the terrain: 12 relatives present, 2 who side with momentum, 3 who trade in gossip for leverage, the rest undecided until the wind chooses. The memorial taught me where spectacle could be staged. This room taught me where silence could be sharpened. When the checklists reached me, I read each line and signed. Control what you can touch. Leave the rest to records and light. Vicky hovered, seeking commentary, then let it go when I gave her none. Power-starved cruelty needs audience. Starvation is often the cure. The meeting ended in the clatter of plates and chair legs. I set my mug on a side table and stood. No speech, no rebuttal. Calm is most provocative when the other side wants your heat. The room exhaled, then held its breath. At the door, I memorized the scene: the tray of cookies with one star-shaped gap, the garland drooping at one corner, my aunt's careful hands gathering napkins. James is waiting steady as a keel. This is what they think they can take my footing in ordinary rooms. They are wrong. I carry my footing with me. Vicky's side glance measuring damage. I write in binder witness count 12. Truth doesn't whisper, it waits on a flash drive. December 26th, 2023. The study holds a winter hush desk lamp, pooling amber window dark as a visor. I set my father's photograph upright and clear space on the blotter as if prepping an operating table. A soft knock. James opens, steps aside. A man in a pea coat. Our quiet courier sets down a small evidence pouch. Nods, vanishes back into the cold. The door clicks once like a seal being pressed. I glove up. Static licks my wrists. The pouch yields a thumb drive the size of a clipped nail. James powers the laptop. The fan answers with a restrained whir. We don't speak. We have both been in rooms where words contaminate the scene. The first file is labeled with a date and a hotel. I press play. Silverware clinks. A bar towel snaps. Then Vicky's voice threads the ambient noise with a hiring manager calm that makes my knuckles ache. Get the moment she loses control. Each syllable lands with payroll certainty. Money slides across wood, an unmistakable hush. A male voice follows, smooth, detached, the cadence of a man who invoices harm. One clean shot is all it takes. I let the audio run twice, then scrub back to catch the breath at the end of Vicky's sentence. Control has a signature, and hers is clipped, eager. In the reflection on the laptop glass, I watch my face settle into procedure. Father taught me that honor isn't naive, it audits. James leans on the bookshelf, eyes on me, not the screen. We expected coordination, he says. This is procurement. I nod and begin the log: time code, location, voices, physical cues. I record the glassware, the scrape of a chair, the server's apology, the timestamp on the receipt caught at the edge of the frame. The second file holds parking lot audio, wind shearing the mic, Mercer's baritone tucked behind it. He lays out his fee structure the way he once laid out op-tempo bullet points disguised as manners. He mentions a firm in Arlington by first name only. They'll shape the impression, he says. Your sister will do the rest by resisting in public. Caroline answers on speaker by the third ring, voice crisp. I outline what we have, careful with adjectives, generous with evidence. She listens without stepping on the tape. Chain of custody is clean, she says. Preserve, duplicate, and isolate. And Catherine, remember what I told you about volatility. They will try to knock you off the NSC track by baiting you. Do not bite. I copy the files to a write-once disk, compute hashes, and print checksum sheets that smell faintly of toner and resolve. James signs the witness line. I sign the handler line. We both initial the seal on the pouch. The table becomes a small courtroom where paper does not blink. Only then do I let the implications climb the rungs to where decisions live. This isn't just about cutting me out of a will or muddying a memorial. It's designed to pop in political feeds, to sour clearances, to make my nomination file radioactive to someone who has never met me. Attack the story, bury the service. I open the steel safe inset behind the shelf. The hinges whisper. The interior swallows the cold light. I slide in the pouch, the disc, the log, and the custody forms. An hour ago, evidence scattered across a city. Now it sits catalogued, patient, incontrovertible. James touches my shoulder, a pressure point that says, I see you, and I'm still here. The study exhales. Sleet starts against the window, world working on its own schedule. I close the safe and rest my palm on the door until the metal loses my warmth. Then I lean close enough that only steel can hear me. You've chosen your battlefield. So will I. By morning, my father's honor was trending for all the wrong reasons. December 28th. The kitchen is awake before we are screens blinking alerts dripping into the room like a leaking faucet. Coffee crawls through the machine. The house is still dark enough that the phone light looks surgical. James slides a mug toward me and sets his own aside, reading my face the way he reads a radar screen, measuring for impact, not drama. A link sits at the top of my messages forwarded by people who once sent holiday photos. I open it. The clip is lit like a confession, my hand holding a purple heart. A hard cut. A different room. Metal clinking against a trash can. A sentence stitched from borrowed syllables, cold, contemptuous mine only by fraud. The timeline in the corner lies without blinking. The sound has been cleaned so the lie arrives crisp. The scroll bar says, "What the edit does not view counts climbing." Comments split into righteous anger and sport. Disgrace. Unstable general. Thumbnails multiply the way mold does, thriving in damp attention. Someone has slowed my face to catch a non-existent sneer. Someone else freezes on the fall of light to prove intent. In this arena, perception is a weapon. The first casualty is context. James watches my knuckles whiten around the counter edge, says nothing. The hardest work is restraint. The temptation is a statement, a counterclip, a live denial with every receipt stapled to it. But the audio from the hotel taught me what they bought, not truth, but reaction. If I supply it, I underwrite their plan. Caroline blinks into the video window, hair up, legal pads behind her like stacked shields. I don't bother with greetings. I narrate what the clip pretends to be and what it is. I describe the cut lines only a trained eye traces, the way the light jumps rooms but the editors hope the outrage won't notice. She listens, pen hovering, breath even. They seeded it with volume, she says. Bots, burner accounts, the usual scaffolding. If you react now, you'll validate their script. My silence will be read as guilt. Brief the people who need facts. Everyone else gets evidence later, not emotions now. Chain of custody logs, hashes, those are our verbs. I nod, and the motion feels like a promise I intend to keep, even if it costs me a week of sleep. James tips the screen toward himself, scanning comments like he's reconning a coastline. The tide will turn when we move in court, he says. Until then, we don't swim with it. I'm not naive. There are rooms that only headlines enter, and this one's already rattling around them. Sponsors rescind quietly. Committees hesitate. A security office somewhere begins to draft a polite email that says, "Not now." This is exactly what the plotters purchased in that hotel, murmur the chill that comes when institutions smell smoke and choose distance over inquiry. I step away from the phone and find a pad. I write the words. I wish the clip contained context, custody, contempt, but not mine. Then I outline what we control. The metals are under museum lock. The audio is preserved. The devices from the memorial are logged with serials and signatures. The lies have a shape. So does the truth. The difference is patience. Caroline wants a time-stamped memo to the liaison handling my nomination file, not a public plea. I dictate clean facts. She edits in shorthand and emails a copy to both of us before the kettle finishes its wheeze. James prints it blue ink across my name, a dated time under it. Paper steadies rooms the way ballast steadies ships. The clip continues its upward climb out in the open. In here, the counters go quiet. I close the browser. The kitchen exhales. They want noise. I'll answer with silence until it cuts. We stand that way for a beat longer, the three of us framed by steam and pixel light. The admiral, the attorney, and the officer who refuses to wrestle in the mud because she brought a ledger to a riot. The phone vibrates against the table once, then again, a new alert pushing through the din with institutional syntax that never wastes a word. Phone buzzes again. National Security Council contacts request clarification. The most dangerous weapon is patience sharpened to a point. The words came to me as I spread the binder across the oak desk. Its pages had grown thick with red lines and clipped documents, each one a reminder that this wasn't grief anymore. It was warfare, disguised as paperwork. The new year had begun in silence, the kind that follows a storm, but promises another. Outside the study window, the trees were brittle with January frost. Inside, the air was heavy with coffee and the scratch of pens. James stood at the window, his posture deliberate, as if even stillness had to be tactical. He tapped a finger against the glass eyes tracing the frozen street, then turned to face me. "We can't keep playing defense," he said. "They'll expect you to deny everything. That's their script. You need something that breaks the frame." Caroline's face flickered on the video call, her voice clipped but steady. "Exactly. If you just shout fake, you look desperate. We need proof so irrefutable the court can't dismiss it." She leaned closer to the camera. A chain of custody. Every medal, every citation logged, sealed, and verified. That was when Dr. Adler cleared his throat. The curator from the Army Heritage and Education Center had the calm demeanor of someone used to guarding objects that outlived wars. He adjusted his glasses and set a folder on the desk. "You'll be relieved to know," he said, "your father's medals have been in our climate-controlled vault since you signed the paperwork. Each transfer logged, every access recorded. If anyone claims otherwise, the records will show they're lying." The weight in my chest loosened a fraction. The purple heart that had been twisted into a weapon against me was in fact under lock and chain where no rumor could touch it. "Then that's our cornerstone," I said. James moved to the table, spreading a map of the Veterans Hall. He had marked seating zones, exit routes, projector placement. His planning looked less like a community event and more like an op order. "The dedication ceremony rescheduled to Feb 15, he said. "We'll use it. The registrar authenticates the artifacts on stage, then we run the side-by-side footage. Quiet, precise, undeniable." I traced a line in the binder pen, biting harder than I meant it to. Caroline watched through the screen, her lips pressed thin. "If you do this, Catherine, it won't just expose the video. It'll expose the entire campaign. Vicky won't walk away from that. She'll fight harder." "I'm counting on it," I replied. In the dim light, I pinned a photo of David Mercer beside Vicky's. The two faces looked back at me from the page, my sister with her poised smile, the disgraced colonel with eyes that never stayed steady. Side by side, they were more than individuals. They were a conspiracy. I wrote beneath the images, "This isn't family drama. It's collusion." The silence after the words settled was sharper than any argument. It wasn't the silence of surrender. It was the silence of a blade honed and waiting. The computer chimed, a new email sliding into the inbox. James leaned over my shoulder. The subject line was blunt, bureaucratic notice of preliminary hearing, January 20th, 2024. I felt my breath steady. The binder wasn't just preparation anymore. It was a weapon loaded. The summons glared from the screen, the date already underlined in my mind. Some betrayals echo best over cutlery and wine. The Seal safe house smelled faintly of bleach and black coffee. January 5th, 2024. James and I sat shoulder to shoulder in the dim room, the hum of a projector filling the quiet. Lieutenant Parker slid a folder across the table, his gloved hand steady. The grainy stills looked like postcards from a dinner no one was meant to see, a hotel restaurant, linen tablecloths, crystal glasses catching low light. Parker adjusted the audio deck and pressed play. The clink of silverware, a muffled laugh. Then her voice, Vicky's, emerged as clear as if she were seated across from us. "People don't remember the whole story, only the image you give them." She said it with the cadence of a lesson, not a scheme, and I felt my teeth grind. She had learned the same doctrine I had, but twisted it into poison. The feed shifted. Mercer leaned back in his chair, broad shoulders curved in calculation. His hand rested on an envelope. He slid it across the table. The microphone caught the scrape of paper over linen, then the hush of bills shifting inside. I studied his face in the frame, controlled smug, a man accustomed to operating in gray. I took notes in the binder, careful as a surgeon. Vicky's words were not hearsay anymore. They were evidence. The way she paired her tone with Mercer's transaction turned speculation into conspiracy. James exhaled slowly beside me. Cash, he muttered. Old currency for an old betrayal. Parker didn't comment. He produced another sheet, a printout of payment records cross-referenced with Arlington Law's trust account. My pen underlined each amount, the dates circling the same days I'd seen in Mercer's travel logs. Numbers don't perform, they reveal. This trail would hold in any courtroom. But the real cut came when Parker flipped one last page, a dossier note from years back, stamped with my initials. Mercer had once pushed a Black Ops project through review, a plan to blur oversight to build a shadow command without chain of accountability. I had blocked it, my signature halting his advance. He never forgave me. And now he had found the perfect partner, my sister, hungry for recognition and blind to consequence. The discovery settled in my chest like lead. It wasn't just about inheritance or honor or even the nomination. For Mercer, it was revenge. For Vicky, it was ambition. Together, they had turned family into leveraged legacy, into a commodity. I closed my eyes a moment and an image rose unbidden, Emily's paper crown, purple with silver stars, fragile and earnest. She had held it above her head like royalty, asking only if the metals were safe. That innocence was the opposite of what I saw now on the screen. A child's faith weaponized by a mother who believed images mattered more than truth. I pressed the binder shut, the pages thick with arrows and dates. James touched the corner of the book, steadying it, steadying me. I looked back at Parker. This holds, I said. Chain of custody intact, clean, he replied. No breaks. The air seemed to still, the kind of pause that precedes orders given. I stared at Vicky's frozen smile in the photo, Mercer's hand poised on the envelope, and I felt the steel line inside me draw tighter. They think I'll come unarmed. They don't know what I've kept. And if you want to walk with me into the next battle, make sure you stay subscribed so you won't miss what comes when the lights of the courtroom finally turn on them. The courtroom hadn't opened yet, but my trial was already underway online. Jan 15, 2024. The Pentagon office hums with recycled air and fluorescent certainty. My monitor is a wall of headlines and cropped outrage, a slowed frame from the doctored clip, my hand frozen over a medal that was never anywhere near a trash can. Below it, a stack of notifications calls. I won't return invitations to appear on programs that thrive on heat. The scroll is a tide. If I let it, it will carry me out. Mr. Green steps in without sitting, the kind of man who telegraphs urgency by refusing chairs. Unless you clear this fast, your nomination is finished. No padding, no pleasantries. He keeps his coat on as if he expects me to sprint to a microphone. Noted, I say. The word is smaller than what I feel. I close one window, then another, until the screen offers me only the desktop and a small patient folder labeled Evidence. We're moving, I add. But not like they want. He glances toward the corridor as if the rumor mill is a physical machine we can hear. There's pressure to put something on the record. A statement. A denial. The muscles in my jaw consider it. A statement has velocity, and velocity can feel like relief. But Caroline taught me the difference between relief and remedy. I shake my head. Denials are cheap and sticky. They want me loud. The phone blinks Caroline into the room, all edges and law. We answer in court, not in gossip columns. She doesn't wait for me to agree. Your memo to the NSC liaison goes out clean. Time-stamped facts, custody logs, 0 adjectives. Then we stop feeding the spectacle. Let the filing speak. Green's mouth tightens a fraction. He's not wrong to worry committees like distance. Headlines sell distance. I can buy you a few days, he says, But if the noise keeps rising, it will. I cut in gentle but flat. Noise is their strategy. Ours is light, not volume. He studies me the way a pilot studies weather looking for a gap. If you hold and if the judge admits your exhibits, I can keep the file alive. But this is a narrow runway. After he leaves, the room recovers its artificial calm. I let my hands rest on the desk until the hum of the HVAC matches my breathing. Outside, the river looks pewter. Inside, the cursor waits. The old lesson returns. Not every battle is won by moving first. Some are won by refusing to move the way you're herded. A sidebar on one outlet has my father's memorial photo sliced from a program and captioned by strangers who never knew him. They harvest his name for points in a game that pays in clicks. That casual cruelty scrapes bone. Caroline walks me through the next steps: preservation notices already served, subpoenas drafted, the analyst under retainer waiting with spectrograms and metadata, Dr. Adler on call to attest to vault custody. We rehearse answers for what I will not say in public. I will not validate a lie by repeating it. I will not litigate in interviews while the court has a calendar. My fingers hover over a drafted press release, a tight paragraph that would satisfy people who want sound bites to carry them through lunch. I can feel the burn of wanting it, wanting the spine-straightening relief of throwing truth at a wildfire. But the wildfire runs on oxygen. Every word I give it is air. They'll see me break if I fight their way. I won't. I save the memo to green, attach the hashes and logs, and hit send. Then I close every open window until only the reflection of my face rides the black glass. The trial that matters has a docket number. The other one out there is theater designed to grind. I press my palms flat and let the quiet regain the room. Court date confirmed. Jan 20, Fairfax County. Eye under spotlight. When a court date becomes a battlefield, evidence is ammunition. January 18th turns the Steele residence into a staging ground. The dining table is buried beneath documents, exhibits sealed in plastic sleeves, custody logs stacked like bricks. Every surface is claimed by paper, and every page carries the weight of something that once lived as rumor and now sits hardened into proof. The air is dry from the heater, sharp with ink and coffee. James checks the locks on the doors twice before he joins us. Caroline presides like a commander. She sets her watch down beside the folders, its ticking louder than I expect, a reminder that we are inside borrowed time. Again, she says, nodding to Dr. Adler. He straightens the thin binder of museum custody logs, eyes steady behind wire-rimmed glasses. His testimony is our spine, and Caroline hammers it until there are no cracks left. What did you receive? She prompts. Artifacts transferred from Catherine Steele, December 15th. Purple Heart Bronze Star Service records, logged under accession code A1524, and their status now secured in Vault 3B, climate controlled, no unauthorized access, chain unbroken. Caroline drills him on every potential line of attack: dates, temperatures, signatures, the shape of the vault key itself. Adler answers without hesitation, the cadence of a man who has lived inside archives long enough to understand that silence can be louder than spectacle. I log each exchange in my binder red pen, marking the places Mercer's narrative will crack. James takes over when the lawyer and curator break for water. He pulls up the seal report photographs, grainy but undeniable, Vicky's hand sliding a phone across a hymn book, Mercer leaning over a hotel table, envelope folding under his palm. "This is your witness chain," James says, his tone clipped familiar. "Device to operative to evidence room. If they press you, you walk them step by step. No flourishes." I nod, copying his phrasing exactly. Flourish is weakness here. Clean detail, nothing more. By nightfall, the house hums with exhaustion. Caroline rubs her eyes. Adler closes his folder. James refills mugs. I stay at the table, pages spread around me like a map of betrayal. I draft the words I will say at Veterans Hall after the court begins to unmask them. Honor is not a prop I write. It is earned in blood and carried in silence. No one gets to stage it for effect. The phrase steadies me. I picture the hall flag standing at attention, veterans seated with straight backs, a community listening for truth. I imagine lifting the cover from the plaque, my father's name engraved in bronze, that will not tarnish with gossip. The speech waits like a drawn blade. Tomorrow I carry it with me into the courthouse, even if I do not speak it yet. Midnight brings quiet. Caroline sleeps in the guest room, Adler at a hotel nearby. James keeps watch by the window. I stay with the binder. Every red line I've drawn since December converges on two names, Mercer and Vicky. Their alliance looks like family drama to outsiders, but the binder shows it plain. Money, contracts, edits, whispers purchased at a table meant for dinner. I stare at the web until my eyes blur. It is no longer a collection of papers. It is a weapon built page by page. Morning comes cold, the kind of cold that cracks skin. I dress in uniform, the fabric heavy, the ribbons straight. James buttons his coat without words. Caroline meets us at the courthouse steps, file tucked under her arm like a shield. The marble rises gray against the sky. Reporters linger, pens poised, cameras ready to consume a stumble. I take the stairs one at a time, the binder secure in my grip, my oath heavier than my breath. I pause at the threshold, the courthouse doors yawning open to swallow us whole. Under my breath, steady, almost prayer, I let the truth settle in, the only words that fit. I'm not walking into a trial. I'm walking into an ambush I prepared for. Courtrooms don't echo with gunfire, but the silence can cut deeper. January 20th, 2024. Fairfax County Courthouse breathes with fluorescent hum, a light too clean, too pale, as if it wants to erase what people bring inside. I place the binder on the polished oak, my hand pressed flat to feel its weight. This book has become my rifle, my armor, my record. Across the aisle, Vicky sits in tailored navy lips, pursed in a half smile that wants to look gracious. Mercer hides behind her shoulder, second row, silent jaw, rigid eyes trained on the carpet like a man rehearsing neutrality. Caroline stands with posture that belongs to someone who has lived in courtrooms longer than pews. She asks to introduce Exhibit A. The judge nods and the screen flickers to life. We hear plates, cutlery, low hotel noise, then her voice. My sister's voice. Get the moment she loses control. It is steady, calm, transactional. I hear murmurs from the gallery. Caroline lets the silence do the work. Then Mercer's words follow, smooth, detached. One clean shot is all it takes. The judge's pen pauses. That is all I need to see. He listens without leaning forward, but his stillness feels like verdict. Caroline cues the next exhibit, inventory of devices seized at the memorial. Photographs appear, phones labeled receipts, signed metadata time-stamped to the minute. The clerk reads serial numbers into the record, chain of custody unbroken. Each signature sounds like a door bolt sliding. Vicky shifts in her chair, smoothing fabric, trying to conjure composure. Her eyes dart to Mercer. He keeps his gaze fixed on nothing, as if blankness could protect him. Green, the liaison from NSC, stands near the back, arms crossed, watching not only the evidence, but my stillness. My nomination file hangs somewhere in a cabinet. What he sees here will decide whether it gathers dust or moves forward. Opposing counsel raises an objection, words, sharp, accusing relevance. Caroline answers with nouns, not adjectives, recording receipt vault affidavit. She does not waste breath. The judge sustains clarity, not performance. The gallery quiets again. The analyst testifies next, describing how altered media breathes frames, that jitter pixels that shift. He explains spectrograms like a lecture, not theater. Even those who don't understand the science feel the weight. Rumor is fragile under fluorescence. I think of my father's plaque still waiting under velvet at Veterans Hall. If this courtroom is the spine, that ceremony will be the voice. Today is only the beginning. If we win here, his name will be engraved in truth, not gossip. Caroline clicks forward one last time. Mercer hand sliding the envelope, cash folding into silence. The image freezes. No narration needed. The judge's gaze holds a beat longer, then he lowers his pen and speaks with the precision of a gavel. The record will show this campaign was deliberate. The sentence is quiet, but it lands with finality. I sense breath shift across the room, relief from our side, unease from theirs. Vicky's face flickers, a mask cracked. Mercer stares at the screen as if willing it to blink away. Green exhales softly. I catch it even from here. Court adjourns for the day. Exhibits admitted, further testimony scheduled. People rise, shuffle, cough. Outside cameras wait to drag this into spectacle. Inside silence proves heavier than noise. I close the binder, its spine warm beneath my palm. Evidence has become ammunition, and today we fired the first round. Caroline gathers her files. Green nods once, careful not to betray relief. I stand smoothing my uniform, eyes forward. Vicky avoids my gaze. Mercer bolts for the exit. None of that matters. The record has spoken. The battle isn't won in court alone. Next is the public square. They built their weapon from pixels. I tore it apart with light. The second day of hearing resumes with a stillness heavier than the first. Courtrooms have their own weather, and today, the air is charged, waiting. The clerk dims the lights, and the projector hums to life. What fills the screen is the same poison that spread across feeds weeks earlier. My hand, a purple heart, the cut, the clang of a metal dropping into a trash can. Hashtags and headlines rode this sequence like cavalry. Now it sits frozen, awaiting cross-examination. Caroline nods to the forensic analyst, a man with careful glasses and the patience of a scientist unbothered by spectacle. He begins with 2 source clips. The museum cataloging video from early December, where each medal was logged under fluorescent light accession codes, read aloud, Dr. Adler's voice, calm in the background. Then, another video footage from a community cleanup event, me carrying discarded plaques and ribbons into a bin, sweat on my uniform, the work ordinary. Played separately, they are mundane. Stitched together, they become a weapon. The analyst walks the court through the seams. He points to pixels that falter, shadows that jump across frames. The spectrogram reveals spliced syllables, words lifted from other sentences, cut, rearranged, sharpened into a sneer I never gave. The waveforms tremble where the edit knifed them. This, he says, tapping the graph, is the breath between words. In authentic speech, the breath flows. Here, the breath vanishes. The judge leans forward now, pen-still eyes fixed on the evidence. Caroline asks for the frame-by-frame comparison. Side by side, the truth sits with the lie on one side, my hand steady over catalog sheets. On the other, the identical hand-lighting, wrong shadow, inconsistent metal magically transported to a trash can. Even those without training can see it. The false image stutters when light touches it. Dr. Adler takes the stand, documents stacked like shields. He testifies that the Purple Heart never left vault custody since December 15th. He recites accession codes, humidity readings, signatures logged with sterile care. He speaks as archivists do, without performance, only fact. Each sentence is a nail driven through rumor's coffin. Opposing counsel tries to rattle him with hypotheticals. Adler only repeats. The object never left secured custody. Any contrary representation is impossible. The analyst returns once more, overlaying the doctored clip with metadata stamps. Creation date, modification date, software tags. He explains how alteration leaves fingerprints. The projector shows lines of code like scars across the file. Caroline lets him speak uninterrupted because truth needs no flourish when it breathes so clearly. Vicky fidgets, her hand curling over her lap. Mercer stares ahead, face impassive, but a bead of sweat traces his temple. The gallery shifts in their seats, a collective exhale. Outside this room, the clip ran like wildfire. Inside it, under light and scrutiny, it collapses like ash. Caroline makes no closing argument for this motion. She simply says, "The exhibit speaks for itself." Silence follows, taut and sharp. The judge clears his throat and delivers the sentence that will echo far beyond these walls. The clip was manufactured to convey a false impression of contempt. It will not be admitted as authentic evidence. The words land heavier than gavel would. For weeks, I lived under the weight of a weapon carved from pixels. In a few minutes of light, that weapon disintegrates. My nomination file still hangs in balance, but the ground under my feet steadies. Truth has begun to walk on its own legs. As the lights rise and papers shuffle, I glance across the aisle. Mercer leans slightly toward Vicky. Their eyes meet for a beat too long, her jaw tight, his expression brittle. It is not solidarity, it is fracture. I open the binder and write in red crack in the alliance. Honor doesn't roar. It stands in bronze and refuses to move. February 15th, the County Veterans Hall breathes like an old barracks. Flags line the walls. A brass eagle catches the gymnasium lights and throws them back in quiet arcs. The sound system hums like a held note. Townsfolk fill folding chairs. A retired judge sits front row, pen ready, the kind of witness who measures truth by posture. James stays in the back, invisible until I need him. Caroline nods to me from the aisle. Dr. Adler rests a slim binder on his knees as if it were a reliquary. I step to the microphone and let the room settle. The first slide lands an intake log stamped and initialed. Adler rises, clears his throat, and speaks in the grammar of stewardship. He lists accession numbers, dates, humidity checks, who signed the vault, and when. His sentences do not perform. They account. I watch faces soften, the veterans, because they know what careful hands look like. The second slide is darker. We play the hotel audio. Silverware, the hush of money, then Vicky's voice, crisp, almost bored. Get the moment she loses control. The words fold into the rafters and stay there. No one claps. No one needs to. Cameras stay outside. In here, patience leads. The room recalibrates. I do not explain. Evidence should breathe unassisted. The projector shifts to a side-by-side frame, the doctored clip, and the source moments that birthed it. The analyst narrates the seam lines and spectral gaps where spliced syllables choke. Pixel tremor becomes a kind of confession. Even the skeptical lean forward. I turn to the display case at stage left. Under tempered glass, a small violet ribbon holds its shape the way a spine holds a body. I rest my palm on the lid and address the room that once knew my father as a neighbor who shoveled snow before dawn and never spoke of medals. My father's Purple Heart is not a prop. It was wounded into existence. I lift the velvet cover from the bronze. The plate gleams with an honest weight that needs no amplification. His name is the sound. For a breath, the hall is utterly still, as if the flag has paused. I think of the day I found the medal in a paper bag and understood that honor costs maintenance, not the pose of it, but the care. A veteran in a Korea cap clears his throat and says, "That'll do, the highest commendation some men ever give." The retired judge notes a line. The registrar signs a custody receipt. The analyst powers down the projector, leaving a rectangle of clean light where doubt had been. Before the applause, the registrar steps back to the microphone and restates the timeline: intake on December 15th, Vault 3B, dual signature, access, temperature logs unbroken. A retired Marine by the aisle removes his cap and holds it to his heart. The judge rises just enough to scan his notes and nod once, a small assent. I feel the story leave my hands and stand on its own feet. I keep my remarks spare. I speak of service that outlast uniforms, of records that steady rooms, of communities that choose repair over spectacle. I refuse to mention my sister's name. This is not her stage. It belongs to the people who taught me patience and to the artifact that taught me restraint. Applause arrives late, as good applause often does not a roar, but a standing hush that lifts and settles like a flag finding its wind. James meets my eyes and doesn't move. In that stillness, I hear every mile of the road we walked to come here. Caroline squeezes my arm. Adler exhales like a man setting down crystal. Outside, winter air bites clean as steel. The parking lot glows sodium gold. The night sounds ordinary again. Footsteps approach. Dana Ross, Vicky's former colleague who couldn't stomach the smear, waits near the curb, an envelope held flat against her coat, expression, careful voice, low enough to keep the moment from fraying. She asked me to give you this if you still wanted truth more than a win. Confessions don't always come in court. Sometimes they arrive folded in an envelope. Night gathers at the windows so completely the house feels like a ship at sea. The kitchen lamp throws a warm circle across the table, leaving the corners to keep their secrets. James opens the door at Dana's soft knock. Winter air trails her in sharp and honest. She asked me to bring this, Dana says, voice, low enough not to fracture the room. She lays the envelope flat on my palm and holds my gaze a second longer than courtesy requires. I carry it into the lamplight. Paper rasp, adhesive, sigh. Inside, one sheet, ink blotched where someone hesitated. Beneath it, a small crown cut from purple construction paper, silver stars in a crooked ring. Across the band, in a child's careful letters, a single word, brave, Emily's crown. I steady my breath and unfold the note. I hired them. I was wrong. Use this. Do not protect me. Nothing ornate, no plea to soften the edges. It is the sound a dam makes at its first crack. The line I've carried in my pocket for months, anger sharpened to a tool, does not vanish, but it shifts back half a pace to make room for something steadier. I slide the crown onto the table as if it might break. James reads the note, says nothing. Restraint is our grammar. I call Caroline. She answers on the first ring, fatigue wrapped in purpose. Bring everything into the light, she says. No commentary. 15 minutes later, she's at the door with a scanner, seals evidence sleeves, a tote that hums with legal ritual. We log the envelope, timestamp, the handoff, photograph the contents, then find the second layer, a flash drive taped inside the fold. Its label is blank. Its memory isn't. Mercer invoices line the screen in neat rows, retainerships, strategy packages, dates that bracket the rise of the smear. Transfers from a shell to the Arlington firm's trust ledger read like stage directions, narrative package pressure points. The amounts match Parker's printouts. The dates hug the hotel audio. Numbers don't perform. Caroline works like a clockmaker, patient and exact. Duplicate hash seal. She drafts a supplemental affidavit, then a museum notice to tie Vicky's admission to Adler's custody logs, the vault that will outlast all of us. James cross-references each file against the binder's red lines, then lays new arrows, bright and undeniable. I read the note again. My sister's handwriting is familiar, the tilt from late nights when homework was the hardest thing we knew. The crown glints under the lamp, silly and noble at once. Somewhere a child got the lesson right. Courage isn't noise, it's maintenance. I do not excuse damage. I measure it, then choose direction. I take the crown in both hands, careful of the drying glue, and let the ache pass without demanding payment from anyone smaller than it. Brave isn't blameless, but it's a start, I whisper, and feel the room steady around the words. Repair is not absolution. It is a road that finally tilts toward morning. Caroline seals the pouch, signs the flap, and slips the copies into her bag. We file at 9, she says. This shifts the weight of the record. Dana squeezes my shoulder at the door. Relief and regret braided into one touch. She leaves to face her own fallout. James pours tea and sets the kettle where the envelope had been. We don't toast. We let quiet take its rightful place again. My phone vibrates, once institutional as a stamp. Judge sets final ruling for Feb 28. Justice isn't a roar, it's a steady breath at a grave. February 28, 2024. Arlington is quiet under a pale winter sky. The ruling came that morning, injunction permanent Mercer under federal investigation, my record cleared and forwarded, with a note from Green that read simply, "File active." The courthouse words still hum in my chest, but they feel distant here. Out among the white stones, victory shrinks into perspective. Rows of markers stand at attention more perfectly than any parade, each one carrying weight heavier than politics. I climb the small hill where his name is etched, boots pressing into frost-bitten ground. A few veterans linger nearby, silent witnesses with their hands folded. They don't speak. They don't need to. Their presence steadies the air like the cadence of a guard shift. I kneel at the stone-gloved hand, tracing letters I once feared would be buried under rumor. They stand clean now, unchallenged. From my pocket, I take a small pin, Purple Heart replica, edges worn smooth. The original remains secured in its vault, documented, untouchable. This token, though, carries the echo of all those hearings, affidavits, red lines in the binder, crowns cut from paper. I place it at the base of the headstone. For a long moment, I listen to the flag snapping overhead, the wind making its own hymn. His voice returns not in sound, but in memory. Honor is a choice you keep choosing. I let those words circle through me, not as command, but as reminder. Each time I resisted the urge to lash out, each time I chose record over rage, I was choosing him again. He never asked for medals. He asked for steadiness. Emily's crown flashes in thought, purple paper, silver stars. She wrote brave in block letters. I wonder if one day she'll learn what her gift carried, how a scrap of construction paper outlasted doctored pixels and contracts signed in back rooms. Perhaps bravery isn't noise, but the decision to keep faith with what matters even when others abandon it. I set the binder down on the grass, closed now, tabs no longer needed. Its red lines end here, converging at a grave that doesn't roar. James stands a short distance away, hand at his side in quiet salute. Caroline has returned to her cases, Adler to his vaults, but their presence lingers in this silence, folded into the choice that steadied me. The wind shifts, carrying the faint scent of pine and stone. I lean closer to the marker, whispering words I have rehearsed only in silence. I kept it your name, your honor, my steadiness. My breath fogs against the cold air, then vanishes, but the vow remains etched deeper than any headline. I rise, brushing frost from my knees. The veterans nod, once wordless acknowledgement. I leave the hill slower than I climbed, the weight in my chest no longer a burden, but a balance. The cemetery recedes behind me, but the steadiness walks with me. At the memorial, they thought I was alone, but I never was. I stood through storms of lies, betrayals that cut deeper because they came from family, and trials that tried to strip me of honor. Yet I learned that silence can be stronger than shouting, that truth needs patience to grow roots, and that justice, though late, does arrive. I ask you now, what do you see in my journey? Share your thoughts with me. Remind me that the fight was not walked alone. And take this with you: never let others define your worth. Protect what matters quietly, steadily, until the day comes when light speaks louder than rumor.